Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to today's joint webinar with Passportal and Auvik, Managing Risk as You Scale Your MSP. Today's presentation is being broadcasted live. It'll also be recorded and provided to you as video on demand for later listening or sharing with colleagues. Throughout today's presentation, please feel free to enter any questions or comments in the GoToWebinar question or comment section. All questions answered will be answered appropriately by the end of business today, if not at the end of today's presentation. Today's presentation is coming to you actually live with both organizations actually in the same room, which doesn't happen too often with many of these joint webinars, but from Kitchener, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, we'll be broadcasting today's joint webinar. We'll be focusing today on managing risk and scalability inside your MSP with two great solutions that are offering MSPs differentiated value, service delivery, advancements and opportunities for you to continue the growth and deliver even better services to clients. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes, and we thank you for joining us here live. Welcome to today's joint webinar featuring Passportal and Auvik. Today's presenters are Alex Hoff, co-founder and VP of Product and Sales for Auvik, and Dan Wensley, Passportal President. Today's presentation is on managing risk as you scale your MSP and includes a lot of insight and good content for any MSP looking to augment, differentiate, and better their service delivery with two great solutions in the market. Looking forward to sharing a lot of statistical data and insight, both from the partners of both these fine organizations and your presenters. Throughout today's presentation, if you have any questions or comments, we'd encourage you to enter those into the questions section inside GoToWebinar. We'll do our best to answer some questions at the end of today's session based on time. However, all questions answered will be appropriately answered by end of business today. And we thank you for joining us, and we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Today's session will be recorded and provided as on demand on both Auvik and Passportal's website should you wish to share today's content, insight, and research with any colleagues or others inside your organization. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We'll be starting today's joint webinar education series hosted today by Passportal and Auvik. The title of today's presentation is Managing Risk as You Scale Your MSP. Today's presenters are Mr. Alex Hoff, co-founder and VP of Product and Sales for Auvik, and Dan Wensley, Passportal President. One of the unique things about today's presentation is both Dan and Alex happen to be sitting in the same room for a change. Many with these joint webinar education series, we're doing it from different parts of the world, different countries, and certainly different cities. So a unique opportunity to have a good conversation with these two organizations, the service and value they're delivering to MSPs on a global basis, all coming to you out of Kitchener, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. Today's presentation is scheduled to last 30 to 40 minutes. Throughout today's presentation, if you have any questions or comments, we'd encourage you to enter those into the questions section in GoToWebinar. We'll do our best to try to answer a couple of questions at the end of today's session, but all questions answered will be provided at the end. Already some commentary coming in for Dan and Alex on the questions, so we appreciate those friends and colleagues participating in today's event. So we've just got a bunch of people loading on right now. We'll start the broadcast officially here in just about 30 seconds. We thank you for joining us live on today's presentation. It will be recorded should you wish to share or review any of the information or insight provided. We'll get started in just 5 seconds. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. With this, we will start today's presentation and start the recording. Great, we're started recording, Alex. Fantastic. All right, well, we'd like to welcome everybody to today's joint education webinar brought to you by Passportal and Auvik. The title of today's presentation is Managing Risk as You Scale Your MSP. And we've got, I think, some really good insight and information and case studies and statistics to share with the audience today from two organizations who are helping literally thousands of partners across the globe do exactly that, help managing risk and scale their business. One of the unique things about today's presentation is we happen to be sitting in the same room. Auvik is headquartered out of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, and myself, the president of Passportal, am also a resident of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. So it's a great opportunity to come into the Auvik, see their new offices as they expand, and to do today's webinar. So Alex, thanks for hosting this.
Oh, you're very welcome. You had the opportunity to come and visit half of our team today at lunch and made a great introduction. So it's great to have you here.
Great. We're really looking forward to some of the content. As you may or may not know, both Auvik and Passportal are fast being adopted by MSPs all over the globe to achieve some of the principles that we're going to talk about today, Alex, when it comes to scaling an MSP. And what's been interesting is we've seen the evolution of managed services over the last decade for most of the industry, moving away from break-fix, getting into recurring revenue. And there's really been a market maturity of some of the great work the MSPs themselves have been doing, leveraging the technologies, the tools, and this new business model. Have you seen a lot of that change in the last little while?
Well, if someone sees my picture there, it looks like I was in diapers 10 years ago. But I've been with Auvik for 6 years, and I've grown to love the MSP market. Interests are mutually aligned. Everyone's interested in trying to do a better job to deliver on their customer services. And the way most people do that is through process and automation. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that and how jointly you can use Passportal and Auvik to kick it up a notch.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you hosting certainly myself into your office and even participating in one of your company events this morning. And so everybody knows, I wore Auvik purple to represent into the office today. And other than the gray hair, I think
turns out I'm wearing the same shirt in my photo.
I think that's the official Auvik shirt.
Yeah.
So, but it was a great opportunity to hear a lot of new staff coming into your organization. You guys are growing extremely fast. What's that success based on? Is that partners taking advantage of your technology? And
it's obviously just like you guys, it's having something that's very unique, very focused, and doing an excellent job at that. And so we've had the opportunity to grow rapidly. Our team is going to be almost 80 people soon, and as you look around our office here, you can see people literally stacked on top of each other. It's a super fun ride. And so yeah, I mean, I think what makes us successful is our partners, being able to go out into their organization, see how they use Auvik, see the problems that they have with their clients' infrastructure, their networks, and help them deliver on their client expectations. And we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and that's been really the focus for us at Passportal as well. I'm not hiding my gray hair quite as well as Alex is, obviously, and it's been so overwhelmingly positive and to see the evolution of managed services over the last 10 years. And what's really exciting about today's joint webinar is I think both organizations add some real new incremental value as every MSP strives to deliver better security, better operation, service delivery to their clients. So I'm excited to get started, and with that, maybe we should.
All right.
All right, so just as a quick introduction, today's joint webinar and education series is not meant to be a product demo necessarily for you, but we did want to give you some insight into both organizations, our view on the market, and where we fit in it. So very quickly, as an introduction to Passportal, we're a 100% channel organization. We have about 1,000 partners now in over 32 different countries, and have been incredibly successful, bringing on over 50 new partners every single month who look to Passportal to really deliver the cornerstone of today's conversation, which is to better manage, secure, and create additional operational efficiencies for MSPs as they work forward. We were founded by an MSP, Mr. Colin Knox, presented there in the center, who ran an MSP and firsthand understood the impact both security, operational efficiency, and passwords specifically were having on his business, and built the technology from the ground up. And just to give you a sense of sort of the value and the service and the product suite of Ocular from Passportal, our first and foremost signature product is password security and technician access management, Alex. And we're going to talk a lot about this and how it pertains to day-to-day operational efficiency for an MSP. We also have documentation management, so a complete integrated both security and operational workflow practice built into the Ocular platform. And then we also provide the ability for partners to deliver password security as new value-added services to clients. And those include both a self-service automated password reset solution called Blink, which eliminates password reset tickets for MSPs and provides a more secure and increased uptime automated way to reset passwords at the end user level. And then our site product, which is a brandable password security as a service solution. But at the cornerstone of everything we do is to make sure we're helping MSPs lower service delivery costs, optimize their operational efficiency, improve security first and foremost, both internally and what they deliver to their clients, and increase value with either new services or just operating a better MSP. So that's where Passportal comes from. And with that, Alex, I'll turn it over to you to introduce those who don't know Auvik.
Yeah, so Auvik, we position ourselves as a network infrastructure RMM. I don't actually come from the MSP background, as I kind of alluded to earlier. I came from a slightly different world, and that was the network equipment provider world. But fundamentally, what we learned in our previous days was the network is complicated. It's a fundamental, hopefully different, challenging with multiple vendors, and so our mission in life is to make that easier. So that's what we're here for. As I mentioned, we're growing rapidly, having a great time doing that, and so we'll talk a little bit about that as we kind of go forward. Great.
So Alex, when we were preparing for today's presentation, this is an Auvik slide, as you may have guessed through the purple tinge to the color schema there, but it really does. I mean, we completely agree at Passportal as far as how to operate an MSP, and I'm sure many of you who are joined us for today's session would also see this. There is a wheel of functionality, a list of feature functionality, and constant areas to be focused on as an MSP to deliver both internal value to your own business and extend that out to your clients. So Alex, talk to us a little bit about your network operations wheel here and what it means to Auvik and how you help partners.
So I think in general, most MSPs have been able to understand and deliver an awesome job at PC and server management. They've been educated, they've learned, they know how to patch, do AV, basically run the client's infrastructure, PC and server infrastructure. But when it comes to the network, it's always been kind of left alone, and traditional RMM tools don't spend a lot of time focusing on that, but it's a fundamental core part of the client's infrastructure, right? As applications move towards the cloud, what remains is the network, and doing a great job is what we're here to educate you on today, and how that ties in with security, documentation management, and passwords. It's kind of a crucial piece of the pie. So we're going to go through a little bit of this and kind of talk about the different fields here. But yeah,
and as you know, Alex, I mean, I come from the RMM background, and what's really interesting, and maybe we should touch on it, is that as you're doing almost remote monitoring management of the network layer, talk to us a little bit about the RMM. I mean, that you guys are adding real value on top of MSPs who have deployed an RMM and a PSA solution.
So, you know, we joke around here, despite the fact we're Canadian, we pretend we're Switzerland. We like to work with everybody. And what I mean by that is we don't try and replace an RMM. We don't, obviously, are not focused on the PSA. We integrate, so we'll talk about that when we get to the integrated workflows. But really, Auvik is it's a niche product. It's helping MSPs understand the network topology, help you with the documentation, which we'll obviously talk about today, remote access, mapping, alerting, all things that are complementary to the RMM. So,
and that's where we got so excited when we saw this. I mean, from a security standpoint and what we do on password security and technician management, we really see value in how MSPs are managing passwords, managing technician access, and managing password service delivery, fitting in with all of these. The integrated workflows, obviously, with the documentation we're going to talk about, documentation processes, and that helps you with your service delivery and understanding client knowledge, which is a big part of documentation. But when you look at security, it does encompass reporting. It does encompass network expertise, making sure the right technician with the expertise has the right credential to deliver the services that you do as an MSP. Controlled access is an obvious one, right? We're going to talk a lot about that, making sure that as you're storing all of your clients' credentials, that you're ensuring the highest level of security possible, even internally, on which technicians are accessing and when they maybe exit the organization. Yeah. And we'll talk a lot about that as well, and the real-time awareness. So, Alex, let's dig in here with number one and talk about the value of client knowledge. And what does client knowledge actually mean? What are we talking about?
Well, I think the industry views this as understanding and documenting. In order to build a successful, scalable business, everyone needs to have access to the right information. When it comes to PC and server management, the RMMs are great at giving you that visibility of what's installed where, what assets do I have deployed in the field. But the network's always been a manual piece of documentation. You have to go out there, literally trace wires, figure out where things are plugged in, identify what gear might be deployed. And I use the word might because quite often we've heard stories from our partners that they'll discover a closet of gear with switches, you know, after they sign that managed services agreement, which is just a recipe for disaster. But really what it comes down to is documentation is crucial. And how do you get that documentation? You can do it by hand, or you can automate and update that automatically. And really that's our place. But if you don't know what assets are deployed in the field, you run into issues with like the crack Wi-Fi thing. I mean, that pretty much applied to every piece of Wi-Fi gear, but it was last summer that a subset of Cisco ASA firewalls and other devices were subject to a clock issue. And we know from our install base that our partners were able to quickly identify what gear was affected and, you know, reach out to Cisco, start that RMA process. But, you know, if you didn't have that information, it was going to be a very manual task. I know one of our partners out in the New York City area said we saved them hundreds of hours from literally going through device by device, CLI screen scraping. So having that information at your fingertips is crucial.
And you guys really excel about pulling that information in for the MSP. From a Passportal's perspective, we talk about the client knowledge that your own technicians have internally and the importance of documentation on process and procedure. Many MSPs, you know, we all have great techs, and then one of them just seems to always excel and do a little better than the others. Well, that cumulative knowledge needs to be documented. So client knowledge can be looked at from a couple of different angles, both internal knowledge of the client as well as client knowledge from a password and credential standpoint. And obviously this is an area of focus for Passportal as we look at every MSP taking in all of the data on behalf of their client and then providing that data in the form of a password per se to a technician who can then access that all the time. So client knowledge is vitally important. We can't do our jobs as an MSP without it, and Auvik gives you that. But how you're accessing it, how repetitively you're able to deliver a service is really important. That's when it comes into documentation, certainly for us at Passportal.
Well, I can certainly share an anecdote there. I mean, I must have jumped on hundreds, if not many hundreds, of deployment calls where you sit with a partner and you're onboarding a prospect or one of their existing clients, and you get on you start the deployment, and everyone gets really excited, but it's like, okay, great, do you guys have the passwords to the firewall? Nope. Well, I guess we could try some defaults, or you're going to have to go on site and talk to your client and figure that out. But you can't do an effective job if you don't have that information. So yeah, software can only do so much, but without that kind of key fundamentals, it's going to be really hard for you to address any issues that come down the line. So I think it's very important to have it somewhere. Obviously, we'd love you to work with Passportal, but having some central repository for information is crucial to not wasting your time troubleshooting.
It's really the cornerstone of managed services. I mean, that from the early RMM and the PSA days, it's all been about the storage of the client knowledge and the data that you're pulling in. Yes, it's got the recurring revenue model incorporated that. It's got proactive versus reactive, but without the data, we're not a plumber anymore walking in and trying to find the leak on site. The data and the knowledge, the insight, and the operational infrastructure understanding is critically important for you to deliver anything sort of proactively. So real-time awareness. This was an interesting one. It certainly took me a minute, Alec. I mean, we talk about real-time awareness as far as even the scenario you're talking about with access to the right password at the right time. So I'll touch on that, but what does real-time awareness mean to Auvik and your partners?
I think it means that when an issue happens at one of your client sites, you're calling them to let them know that you're going to be working on it right now versus them calling you saying, hey, our network's been down for 4 hours.
Right.
So fundamentally, if we can work together to solve that problem, everyone's going to be happier. What that translates to into a technology or a process point of view is doing your due diligence. You need to make sure that the internet connection's up. You need to make sure that the infrastructure is sized appropriately, that in a fast-growing organization that you might be managing, that you're staying ahead of their requirements. And so it's not just a technology. It's not just bits and bytes flowing through the network. It's not utilization. It's also understanding what are their needs, quote unquote, in real time. You don't want it to run into a situation like one of our partners had, where they had this network issue that at certain times of the day the network would go down and they couldn't figure it out. Turns out the company had grown. It had doubled in size. The firewall was undersized, but they didn't have the visibility in order to identify where that bottleneck was. So they would throw a guy on site, try and catch it in the act, but he didn't, in all fairness, he had no idea where to start looking. So, just having visibility is great. It'll help. You also have to need the expertise. We'll talk about expertise, but you need to understand what's happening with the client. Same thing's true on the applications that run on the network, applications that are running on the server. That's what real-time awareness means for me.
And I liked it. Real-time awareness has so many attributes towards password security, access control, documentation, management. A couple of quick examples are real-time awareness for your own technician to have the right credential to do their job. In password management and technician access control, there's too many times where our profits are going out the door as our technicians are searching for passwords. The other, and then I'll spin that a little bit, real-time awareness is also a benefit to your client and to your actual users. In the terms of password security, one of the things that I love to watch our partners talk to their clients about is, as an MSP who is virtually delivering all of your IT needs, all of your security, I want you to know, as my client, I'm also fully aware of who's accessing your passwords, your credentials, and I curtain that access, but real-time awareness is a value proposition as well. And I think that goes both for service delivery with the insight they get out of Auvik, and as a incremental differentiator on security that partners deliver, that we're aware of what's going on, both with your network, proactively, as you mentioned, Alex, and proactively as when it comes to security, on the management side. So I think real-time awareness is something we could spend a lot of time talking to, but I think that's a great start for us. Let's switch over to maybe something I tipped off in the conversation, which is controlled access. So, I mean, this is a no-brainer for me and an easy one. I'm really interested to hear how controlled access is important to Auvik partners.
So I think, again, the network is pretty much the keys to the kingdom. You know, Dan alluded to earlier, what happens when a tech leaves? Well, most people have gotten pretty good at automating password resets on their PCs and servers, but how often have you, I'll pose the question, how often have you cycled the firewall password for your clients? Most people say, ooh, yeah, we haven't really done that. And that's important. So to the extent that you can figure out who's accessing the network, who's logging into that gear, automating the common activities such as backups, which we'll talk about, you want to control who's logging in. If you can hide the passwords from the users, even better. And for some light debugging, we provide what was the right word? A blind login is the right word. So you take the creds from Passportal, pop them into Auvik, and you cycle them when appropriate. But if a tech just needs to log in to run a show command, they can do that without even accessing the cred, which makes it even tighter. Right. So the important thing here is to understand what's your process for the network. Again, everyone speaks to the PCs and servers because that's where most of the focus has been, but that other stuff needs to be addressed too. I mean, there's so many times where we've done deployments with partners and public credentials work, or my favorite, admin still works on the firewall. I was like, come on, you got to do a better job. You're just leaving yourself open to attack.
Right, and that's been the cornerstone at Passportal. I mean, the sophistication of the password is a known best security practice. However, that leads to common errors and mistakes and not knowing. So controlled access from our perspective has a number of different meanings. The first one is controlled access by your technicians. I'm sure most would agree that not all technicians should be accessing a ticket or the credential to a RAID array. We might have a tier 1, 2. We might have outsourced help desk. We might have temporary employees. Controlling the access to your client's credentials and passwords is the first, most simplistic line of defense that you could possibly offer. And then there's obviously lockout controls and things like that. This actually was the catalyst for Colin at his MSP saying, I need a password security solution. He did lose a technician, and in his PSA, logged over 30 hours of time just changing passwords. So not only do we provide the password automation and change policy, but actually locked out workflows. And if I go to the next slide, we talk about some of the impact on the statistics around we call them rogue technicians. What's telling here is a couple of data points. First is that over 80% of MSPs last year through a CompTIA survey reported losing at least one technician. Now, when those technicians left, the question is, what did they leave with? Did they still know client passwords? Did they have access? Well, the other two data points I'm sharing with you here, staggering. 89% of technicians reported retaining access from a former employer, and 49% of them reporting actually logging in. And we all know what those scenarios could be. Went to a competitor, went to somebody else. I mean, the opportunity that we're exposing our clients and our own MSP to is just too high. And this isn't a cost center, this is a profit center opportunity that you are providing better controlled access with solutions like Auvik, with solutions like Passportal, which is a differentiator and a service value to your clients. So controlled access to documentation and workflows, but password security and operational efficiency, I think, are incredibly important. Network continuity. So this is another one, Alex, I had to do a little homework on. Yeah. We've got a little to talk about here, but I know this from an MSP perspective and Auvik's perspective is vitally important and valuable.
I think, yeah, I can see Dan's notes here. He put a little bit of a question mark for himself because this is really, again, if we were having this joint webinar with a BDR solution, the BDR platform, it'd be more applicable. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is, yeah, everyone has a strategy for backups for their PCs and servers for the application data. What happens if lightning strikes? That's why there's an image there. What happens if lightning strikes and knocks out a bunch of gear? You've got a strategy to restore for the servers, but what's the strategy for the network? You might be really prepared and have spare hardware floating around your office ready to drive it on site. But like one of our partners told us, he had the hardware. He only had Auvik on one or two of his clients at the time, and he was like, holy crap, I really, really hope that this is one of the ones that I'm covered on. And luckily he was. He had a backup of the firewall and the switches, able to quickly restore that. So the client obviously is like, well, let's be realistic. There's a major outage. It's out of anyone's control, but it's what the MSP does to deliver on making right on things. And so that guy was able to restore services in a couple of hours, which to me is pretty awesome. But if the case went the other way and you didn't have that backup, that might have been hours or days. It would have been frantic, panicked restoration of services, trying to reverse engineer or trying to go from memory of how that network was configured. And, honestly, that would have sucked. He would have not looked very good in front of the client. Hopefully he wouldn't have lost it, but, I mean, that wasn't the case. The case was he was prepared. And so that's really what you're trying to do, is you're trying to do right by that trust that they've placed in you. And when disaster happens, what's your plan?
And network continuity is important, believe it or not, to us as well. And some of our most successful joint webinar series that we've done is with some of the greatest BDR solutions out there that many MSPs are using. Think about passwords as network continuity without the disaster. If you can't get to the password, there is a disaster, there is downtime. Our Blink product alone, the self-service password reset, the number of tickets most MSPs take with password resets is staggering. And what's really interesting is we don't realize that's downtime. We have our 5.9 SLA, no disaster has occurred, the network is up and running. But for any individual user who can't access a network, that is literally downtime. That could be on fire in the background. The other thing that proper password storage, maintenance, and hygiene delivers to you is we actually store the historical passwords. So if you do have to go back and do a full recovery on your favorite BDR solution, you actually have the correct credential to access that information and get them up and running. So network continuity is not certainly a lane we typically go into, but it does intertwine with so many of the services that passwords touch on, influence, and really do have an impact on. And I think one of the case studies I've got, if I'm not mistaken, on the next slide is adults after the next one. So with that, we'll move on to it. So.
Well, let's just quickly talk about integrated workflows. So for us, again, there's lots of niche solutions that do an excellent job at various facets of the MSP day-to-day life, but they all have to play together. My point here with the integrated workflows is, the PSA is the central focus of the day-to-day life of a tech. If things don't flow in there, they don't exist. Our joke around our office is, if it's not in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. Don't bring me an opportunity if I can't see it in a report. And so that's our thing, is that the documentation needs to flow to the right destination, your documentation platform, your infrastructure has to be integrated, the tickets have to be flowing to the right spots. It all has to flow together, because if it's not, then you're jumping between tools and you're losing efficiency, which is then, hurting your margins.
Yeah, it's the same for, our documentation management solution is understandably just providing the workflow and the process that technicians will follow, but the integrated component of that is the security, the access to the right credential by the right technician, and intertwined with the RMM or PSA integrations. So it's all there. And Alex, you're dead right. This is the cornerstone of managed service providers' profitability stack, is how efficiently can we deliver services. And if you have all the information, but it's dispersed among 15 different locations, that's not helping your technician. That's costing your clients additional downtime as they try to rectify the ticket by searching for information. So obviously this is the cornerstone of what we're helping MSPs do, is the right credential at the right time to the right technician with the proper workflow, with linked credentials, linked articles, and the information even they're drawing out of Auvik to solve those problems.
Yeah, I just think the definition of insanity if you're an MSP is to have two PSAs. That would be the worst thing in the world. And so to use that as hopefully a fictitious example, I hope no one's running two of them. But again, it's all putting it together, minimizing the amount of time searching for whatever it is that they're searching. So point, click, go. Reduce the amount of time going from the time the ticket comes in to the time you can get to some sort of resolution, whether that's finding the documentation, logging into the debugging tool, troubleshooting it, getting the credentials to log in and resolve. It all flows together.
Right.
And to the extent that there is no such thing as a single pane of glass, but to the extent through integration that we can get to a proxy single pane of glass, that's how we're going to, increase everyone's margins.
Yeah, and there's factual data around this. This all sounds hypothetical and all seems to make sense, but what are the actual statistics on it? There's real numbers and real value to the cost of a ticket. And I bring up this slide as an example of our Blink product, our self-service password reset solution. But this is the most finite definition of actual profitability, operational efficiency, and value to the client. I know WinXNet is a partner of Auvik as well, but when we looked at their organization and what they could do with Passportal, password resets were having a significant impact on their profitability, their technician usage, reliability, use, time, effort, with just simple password reset tickets. And being able to eliminate those is kind of the nirvana of managed services, right? Proactive managed service delivery rather than reactive to tickets. So
yeah, I don't have the numbers handy for WinXNet, but one of the driving factors that led us to partner with each other was whenever they had a network issue, like a significant one at a doctor's or a clinic, the network would bog down, get slow, and their solution was to literally drive on site, install appliances, and troubleshoot. Okay, so hey, you're taking the most senior person, you're driving. Okay, I don't know how far away each one of their clients are, but they're spread across all of northeastern U.S. It takes time. That time is brutal, and so to the extent that you can at least localize where an issue might be on a network. I mean, nothing's perfect. You can't always take it to root cause, but if you can identify that, hey, an issue's in this area, what's plugged in over there, let's at least narrow our focus, you're saving so much time at trying to identify what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's what made them successful with all of it.
Yeah. It's a real-time awareness we talked about a little bit earlier. So let's bundle all this up. One of the last pieces of the pie was on reporting. And when it comes to security, again, reporting is critically important, whether it's HIPAA compliance. And I'll tell you, when it comes to password security, if you or your client ever go through an audit, the first thing they're going to ask for is the report. Who had access to what, when, and I need to see the report. And again, that's what our partners are benefiting from. But it's also, we often look at it when it comes to password security as, well, when the tragic happens, here I've got it. Reporting is such a proactive opportunity for many clients to talk about, how many passwords were accessed, how many times I rotated them for you, all a part of the service delivery. So reporting really for us has a two sides to the equation, internal for disaster and external as value.
So I think on the network side, when was the last time you went over to your network technician and said, hey, high five, thanks for doing a great job on our client networks? That just doesn't happen. It's like plumbing and electricity. It just works, and when it doesn't, you raise a temper tantrum. I mean, that's what I do, at least. When the Wi-Fi doesn't work here, we always try and figure out why, and then you get grumpy about it. But reporting is to show that value. The clients just expect that the network works. It's like a utility. And so how do you showcase what you're doing proactively to ensure that they're ready for the next incident, whether that's a network outage from your provider, being able to have the data at hand to show the internet provider, building a strategy for redundancy, whether that's at the hardware level or service level. Really, you need to showcase what's being used by who, by when, in order to understand what's going on and plan for the future. And that's what reporting means to us. It's not always just shiny PDFs, it's about understanding and being able to message that with data.
And looking at reporting internally on how to get better. I think we maybe don't do enough of that as MSPs and start run internal reports on our productivity. So network expertise was another piece of the pie. I mean, this is so critically important when it comes to what we're doing at Passportal. It certainly has to do with credential access and what technicians have, and certainly around documentation. Network expertise is, when defined correctly as a process in the documentation and the workflows, you are upping your game and ensuring consistency of service delivery. But I know our mutual partners with Auvik have such a great sort of inside track and insight on delivering expertise because of the knowledge you bring them.
Yeah, I mean, expertise. You have to have expertise in order to understand what your clients are doing. It's one thing to have a layer 1 diagram of your network. How is everything plugged in? It's another thing to say, I have a backup. Great. But if you don't understand what that means, how are you going to be able to message that when the client comes to you with a new business requirement? We want to roll out, I don't know, I'm going to make something up, a new CRM internally. All right, well, what is the implication on the network? Is it cloud hosted? Is it local? Do we need to install new hardware? What does that mean from a resource point of view? Like, you still need to understand all that. What we want to minimize is the amount of time you spend making changes on the network, you know, all the grunt work associated with interacting with the hardware. Yeah, let's design that out. Your value as an MSP is to work with the client, be that expert. But I mean, fundamentally, the network sucks. I mean, I always joke on webinars, raise your hand if you've ever had the privilege to log into a Cisco webinar or a Cisco a switch. And it's not fun. I've done it. I've logged into thousands of different network elements trying to understand how they work. And reverse engineering this is complicated. It often involves Google. What is this command? What is it doing? How does that play with a different vendor? And so you don't want to do that. Our mission is to help you understand that, but recognizing, like I spoke to earlier, the RMM isn't going to help you. The RMM's focus is PCs and servers. It does a really, really good job at that. Dan comes from a former RMM, and that was their core competency. But your clients expect you're going to do a great job on the network, the firewalls, the switches. Why is my network slow? The worst question you're going to get as an MSP as it relates to the network. And so that's where Auvik comes in. We integrate with a number of RMMs and PSAs, but really it's about pretty pictures. It's about understanding what's going on in the network through live, updating, automatic pictures of the network, shows you where things are plugged in, links change color when there's a problem. We integrate with a number of PSAs, and I think Dan and I have been working very closely with our respective teams to build out a integration on the documentation side for their documentation platform. So we're very excited to talk about that coming up. But again, it's all how these things work together. And yeah, I mean that's my piece there.
Yeah, no, it's managed services 2.0. Again, I've earned the gray hair legitimately over the last 20 years or so, and seen the evolution. And this kind of insight, certainly back from my early RMM days, was nirvana and what everybody dreamed about for proactive service delivery, knowledge-based service delivery, and insights. And we're seeing the same thing with Passportal and password security, documentation management, and ensuring that the workflows are done consistently and effectively by every single technician on a consistent basis. I mean, I think we'd all agree that's what every MSP is looking for, to deliver the best quality of service and value to their clients at the lowest possible cost for the highest amount of value. And I think both organizations are doing a great job sort of availing our partners the ability to deliver against that.
So, I mean, shameless plug.
Starbucks, really?
Yeah. Starbucks, not Tim Hortons.
As a presenter, do I get a Starbucks? Can I book one?
I'll make you a coffee.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Got you a glass of water, but I didn't want to go too far. No, but I mean, hey, if you want to check us out, let's see if it's a fit. The solution's not for everyone, and the reason I say that is not all networks are complicated. If you got a doctor's office with 3 employees, you can see the network. It's a box that comes from your cable provider, and so not always a great fit. But if you've got multiple offices, couple switches, routers, firewalls, bunch of access points, hypervisors, all that other infrastructure, that's where we can help. And to the extent that you want to reach out, let us know. We'll get you a Starbucks gift card and watch a demo.
And if there's any more information, it's certainly Passportal. We have, this is a series of joint education webinars that we've had the privilege to work with organizations such as Auvik on. There's lots more in the BDR and other solutions out there. You can access passportalmsp.com for our resource center, or send an email to info@passportalmsp.com. That does come directly to me as well. We'll make sure any questions you have about our technology, our solutions, case studies, or a demo would certainly be welcomed as well. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for today's joint webinar between Passportal and Auvik, again brought to you, and it was a real privilege to be able to do it live here with Alex out of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, in their new offices, and congratulations on all the growth and success and the value you're delivering to partners. It looks like we're both going to have a pretty good 2018. Was there any questions that you wanted to tackle there?
Got one here.
Blink unlock accounts in the event a user locks themselves out. Blink is, yes, a self-service. So the question was around if a client locks themselves out, that's exactly what Blink does. It's a self-service password reset solution. It's more secure in its delivery. It's less time to remediate and provides a better service to your client. Blink has been an outstanding product for our partners, available on Office 365, Azure AD, and all Windows networks. So I encourage you to send me an email at info@passportalmsp.com. I've got both a WinXnet case study to send you as well as a short video explaining the value of Blink. So a couple of questions, I think, about integration. Alex, obviously we live in the same town, go to the same bars, so I think an integration is
definitely
in the works.
Stay tuned. We'll talk about that later this year, although there's not much left in the year, but I'm pretty confident on that timeline. And we're really excited. I mean, as I mentioned, we're a bit of Switzerland. We'll work with the tools that you guys have. It's part of the integration, so we can't be buddy-buddy with just one platform. We got to work with them all because that's what you guys work with. We take the best of breed, and we want to make sure we do right.
And that gives your partners the flexibility to pick the other solutions that make sense to them, which is in their best interest and the highest value for them. So with that, looking at the time, we again wish to thank you for joining us. If there's any additional questions, please enter them into the question section. Both Alex and I will respond to all the questions being asked by end of business today. The session has also been recorded, so it will be available at both Auvik.com and PassportalMSP.com. That if you wish to share it with any colleagues. Again, thank you, Alex, for hosting me inside Auvik and letting me look at the new facilities and meet some of the great employees and new employees, and all the best in 2018.
Thank you very much. All the best to you guys. And I have one weird last question here. Where do I send my picture of the bear watching this webinar? It's share the bear. What do you,
Hashtag where's the bear?
Hashtag where's the bear. Hashtag Auvik.
On social.
Fantastic.
One last question. With Passportal and Auvik, will we be able to automatically change network device credentials? Yes, stay tuned.
Yes.
That is part of what we're building together. That's a huge value because dealing with multi-vendor, it is a nightmare.
Right.
Literally, I have done this, and I've done this many times. So stay tuned. It's not done yet, but that's something that we're working on. Oh, and one more. Is your product available in Mars? I don't know what that means. So if you could clarify that question, great. But the next one is support for Sonic Walls. Absolutely. Fun fact, 50% of firewalls across our install base that we can recognize are Sonic Walls. So they've done a great job. We see a lot of other vendors, but in terms of monitoring, backup, traffic visibility, yeah, Sonic Wall, we definitely had to make that one work. They didn't make it easy, but yeah, for sure, definitely support it.
Yeah, so a lot of great other questions. Again, we'll respond to all those questions immediately. It's 44 minutes past the hour, so we thank you for your time. We will follow up on this, and for a recorded version, please send an email to info@passportalmsp.com or sales@auvik.com, and we'll make sure you get the recording and follow up with you all. Thanks, Alex, again for hosting.
Thank you so much for coming to our offices. Bye-bye.